Hello, welcome back to the Snake Pit. This is something I've not done before, but I feel it needs to be done. So, as you can see, we are in the world of New World. I've been playing this for a good 80 to 100 hours at this point, I think. But unfortunately, like a lot of people, I've hit the 30s to mid-30s burnout. This is a common, I wouldn't say a problem. Well, actually maybe I would, because a lot of people are leaving the game because of it. You just hit this grind wall where it feels impossible to level. Personally, I'd put that down to that the quests feel unrewarding and disjointed. I have no real interest to do the quests level because I don't necessarily feel I'm achieving anything for the world by doing them. Before we go any further, a couple of points. I will be making comparisons to other MMOs. Most likely World of Warcraft, because that's the game I know the most and I've been playing since the Burning Crusade. So this isn't going to be any World of Warcraft fan video or anything like that. New World does have some very good points to it. The first one of these I want to bring is that, I mean, look at it, this isn't even on max settings, and New World is beautiful. The textures are great, you know, all the foliage and everything is vibrant, all the zones do look different, so you do feel like you're going somewhere that's different from where you've been before. That's one thing that I will praise it on, is how it looks. It is a very pretty looking game. Very pretty looking game. But it also has a lot of problems. A lot of which have been covered by other YouTubers and people already. But I'm going to give my viewpoints on them. And you're obviously free to agree or to disagree. Whatever you wish. Okay, so graphics, amazing. Honestly, I can't fault the graphics. I think it's great. The world is immersive to be in the sense that, you know, it feels like a world. There's wildlife that mills around and things like that. However, there are no NPCs that move around, which does make it feel dead in another sense. NPCs don't have patrol paths from what I've seen, so they literally just stand in the same spot on the map. They don't move. There's no guards or anything like that when a faction takes over a town. There's no guards or anything that stand at the entrance or patrol the town or anything like that. The PvE aspect of the game is, when you first start, it does a good job of introducing you to the world. However, the main quest line, if we open the journal, the main quest line that I'm on at the moment is done in blocks of 10 levels. So I've done the main quest as far as I can up to my level. So I need to reach level 40 in order to do the continuation of this. Now, that's all fine and everything, except I'm in the mid-30s grind burnout, and I don't really want to reach level 40. And it's not that I don't find the main quest interesting at all. It is. It's got some relative story to it. I know that Amazon Game Studios introduced the PvE aspects sort of at the last minute because they realised that a PvP only game would pretty much tank. so they introduced the PvE aspects in the last minute. Um, but you can tell that it's a very shallow addition to the game. Aside from this main quest, which you go through sort of trying to reform this ancient order and to try and combat the growing corruption that's popping up all over the world, none of the other quests seem to, that I've at least done so far in any of the towns, really seem to tie into the main plot or have any relevance to it. Which is why I said the questing feels just disjointed. I mean, I know that in games like, World of Warcraft, when you go to a sort of questing hub, you'll have the main quests in that area, which will then lead you onto, the breadcrumb trail to the next questing hub. But there are obviously side quests around there, but they genuinely feel like they're sort of linked into the main quest to some degree. So, as an example, you'll be in a quest hub, and an unimportant NPC will give you a side quest, which is basically, we're really low on rations, and because of horde attacks, we've not been able to get our supply carts through, but there's lots of bears over in those woods, and we need the meat to feed the troops, so can you go and kill 10 bears and bring back their meat for me? Like, it's a mandatory kill X number of things, bring back a quest item, but at the same time, because of the narrative the quest is given, it feels tied into the main quest in a sense, in that you're helping to feed the troops, which then obviously contributes to the main story in a sense, if you get what I'm getting at. The quests that I've done so far in New World have all felt as literally just little tangential things all on their own. One particular thing comes to mind is in Weaver's Fen. There's a guy that stands outside the entrance that basically you have a series of, I think it's 4 quests from him, and it asks you to go kill X amount of animals each time and get some sort of trophy off of them and come back. And then the last one is you go and kill some like big alpha den mother wolf type thing and come back, and then you get a sort of another bigger quest reward from him. But at the same time, he doesn't seem to really recognise anything that's meant to be going on in the world. In fact, none of the NPCs you talk to do. Some of them mention the corruption that's going on, but none of them really seem that concerned about it. Obviously the factions are all concerned with fighting each other, and the main quest so far has been to try and bring them together to combat it. But none of the other NPCs seem to recognise this sort of overarching, looming threat. That's why I mainly say that the questing feels very disjointed, and I've kind of lost interest in doing it, because it doesn't feel relevant to the story to do these quests. You get the odd one here and there that will be, you need to do this because we need such and such to help combat the corruption, but those quests are few and far between. As for the other PvE aspects, the trade skills, I will say, are very, very good. I've enjoyed the crafting and gathering aspects of New World vastly more compared to the other PvE aspects. I've only managed to do one dungeon so far, which was Amrine, and it was alright. I did it a couple of times, but really nothing to write home about. But what I've mostly been doing now, as you can see by the various levels, is whenever I log on, I've mostly been farming stuff to sell, to try and make money, because anything gives you experience. So if you farm and grind your professions enough, you're going to level anyway. But it's obviously a much slower experience than questing would be. But then you come to the problem that I've run into where I don't want to do the quests. I don't see a point in doing them. But then I don't really want to rush to max level anyway, because as the game is now, there's really nothing to do at max level. Which is another reason people are leaving, because, I mean, obviously, this is a thing that happens in a lot of MMOs, is that people join, they rush to endgame to get there as soon as possible, then they realise there's very little to do, they get bored and they leave. With New World's grind, if you manage to get through the burnout phase and grind to end level, there is very little to do at endgame, except for endgame corruption portals, which are bugged at the moment. The faction wars, which have exploits and bugs and are taken advantage of by players, and I think there's 1 or 2 endgame dungeons at the moment, but those are locked behind keys that you have to craft in order to get access. Luckily, only one person needs a key to get access to a dungeon, so if all 5 people in your group have got it, you can run it 5 times. So dungeon access is behind crafting high-end things in order to get access to them. So essentially at endgame, what the game has at the moment is either bugged or filled with exploits. Now that does lead me onto the PvP aspects. PvP is... I'm not a huge PvP person, and you might think that, oh, well, why are you in a basically PvP game then? It's because I have enjoyed the brief bouts of PvP open world stuff I've had in this game. But unfortunately, there's not any big open world clashes that you'll experience, because the majority of the time everyone is unflagged for PvP. So you'll be milling around, gathering, crafting, perhaps doing quests, and you'll bump into other players and they're all unflagged. So if you're flagged yourself, then you're not going to get any PvP that way. Generally speaking, any sort of big PvP bouts happen when some sort of alert goes out on your faction chat where people say Cutlass Keys, the fort at Cutlass Keys is being taken over, we need to defend it. So you'll go and flag PvP, you'll run over to the keep and help keep it under your faction's control. The wars are 50 versus 50. And as I mentioned previously, there are a number of exploits that players are already using in order for their factions to win. You had the Ice Gauntlet bug, which was where they would essentially, everyone would use an Ice Gauntlet and they'd all spec into the AoE talents of it, and they'd all spam the sort of Ice Dome AoE that does damage over time. And it would essentially lag out the server so that no one could be hit, and they just sit on the capture points and take them. Amazon Games tried to patch this by making it so that the AoEs don't stack. Unfortunately, that then had the added effect of that if one AoE patch goes on top of another, then the previous one is overwritten. So, as an example, say you're running a dungeon, two of you have Ice Gauntlets with the AoE stuff. Your one's really high level and you do a lot of damage. You put it down underneath the boss, but then the second person who's spec'd into Ice Gauntlet hasn't done so much, hasn't leveled it up, hasn't got the right attributes put into it. They put their AoE down, which does hardly any damage, their AoE will overwrite yours. So you're now doing less damage to whatever it is. So that's pretty much also then invalidated the Ice Gauntlet. So that hotfix fixed a bug. But didn't made more problems is what I'm trying to get at. They hotfixed it and made more problems and effectively invalidated more than one person from using Ice Gauntlet, because the AoE does a lot of damage, but with it overwriting each other, that's now null and void. The other main exploit that people are using is the reporting system. Obviously, despite Amazon games specifically stating that there are no auto bans and that all that their reports are reviewed by a person, this is, I would say, company bullshit. It's stuff they say to placate and appease players to make themselves seem better, because it's been proven by now that there are auto bans. Companies are literally mass reporting top level players of their opposing factions, getting them banned for 24 hours so they can't participate in the wars, and thus taking towns super easily without any competition, because they're just steamrolling over all the other lower level players that turn up because everyone else is banned. Faction imbalance on some servers is awful, absolutely awful. There's on some servers, I know that there are factions that literally own the entire map. And as you can see here, Covenant is struggling. They only own 2. But Syndicate and Marauders are relatively even at the moment, but the top 3 high level zones are kind of left alone at the moment. No one's claimed them. As you can see here, Syndicate faction declaring war on the Marauder one, but there's only 50 places available. So on top of the potential exploits of mass reporting people to get them banned so they can't participate, there's only 50 people allowed on each side. Now this can equal to, obviously you only want the best people fighting. I mean, that's a given. You want the highest level people with the best gear fighting on your side. That's fine. But then it gets to the point as well that there's going to be preference for picking friends, or people in general that you've got along with in the game over someone else. So there may be a time where these 50-50 wars are always the same people and no one else ever gets a look in. As far as the factions go, again, this is another aspect of the questing that, to put it bluntly, fucking sucks. All these top row of quests here are the PvE ones. As you can see, their rewards are vastly inferior to the PvP ones. But these are the ones that people will largely do. They'll just run out and do these. These 3 here are the PvP ones. You see the rewards are vastly better, and you also gain faction influence for the town that you're completing them for. Now, if you're out and about doing these, and you die for any reason, be it you go AFK and get killed by a mob, you drown, or you get killed by other players, you will fail all of the PvP quests and have to come back and get them. Now obviously, I'm not complaining about that. That's the whole point about PvP quests. You know, there's meant to be some risks to them, and the whole idea is that you do these and beat the other opposing players that are doing them to make sure that your faction gains the most influence over a town, because if another faction gets to 100%, they can declare war and then potentially claim the town. But they are literally the same things. Kill X amount of something, gather something, pick up something and move it somewhere else. That is literally it. And quite often, in fact, from what I've experienced, 95% of the time, if you're doing these quests, coming back and taking them again and going out and doing them again, they will literally be exact repeats of the ones before. This is just boring, grindy, and another reason why hardly anyone flags for PvP unless there's some sort of mass call out on your faction chat to take part in it. As far as faction balance goes with rewards, every faction, as far as I've seen, offers the exact same rewards. There seems to be no difference in what they offer at any sort of tier. They all have a light, a medium and a heavy set. They all have various different things like these mana elixirs, the material converters, the healing elixirs and things like that. So they all have the same things in their shops. The only difference, I believe, is their looks. So as far as faction balance in the case of rewards goes, I think they've actually done a reasonably good job. However, faction imbalance is still going to be a thing because people obviously want to join the most successful faction with the most land. And people will also join what they think will make them look the coolest. A lot of times people overlook the rule of cool, but it is an important thing for people when playing MMOs, is to look good, playing the character you are. So I notice that the Syndicate tends to be quite popular because a couple of their sets make you look like a witch doctor, or a plague doctor, sorry, which is obviously quite a popular look. So they tend to get more people. And there was a point where, on my server at least, Syndicate had the vast majority of players. However, one Syndicate company basically owned a lot of land and they had taxes set to the max. So they were prohibiting, players making any money with their professions because it costs so much just to use the stations. And also because they were generally toxic assholes in chat to everyone. A lot of people left Syndicate and migrated over to Marauders just to specifically fight back against them. So, it sounds like that all I've done is criticise the game. And I would agree that I have levelled a lot of criticisms at it. I did write a Steam review recommending it, and I do stand by what I said then. But the game definitely has a lot of flaws. With all the bugs and exploits that Amazon needs to fix. The market system is also a problem. Rather than inflation, you've got mass deflation because there's just not enough gold in the economy for people to buy things. So things are going for massively cheap. So stuff like star metal. We'll go for star metal ingot here on my server. So that's the cheapest in Cutlass Keys anyway, is 10 gold for 1 ingot. Now star metal's an advanced thing to create. It takes the previous tiers of things to go into it to make 1 bar. So if we look at the ore, 0.24 per piece. And the problem is that there's not enough gold in the economy, so people never want to buy anything. It is partially players' fault, because the default price, if you put something up that doesn't appear in your region's trade depot, so say I went in and I put up, you know, some health potions or something, and there wasn't any up there, the default price would be 100 gold, and players just rush to post stuff, so they put it for 100, or they lower the price to like 5. They post it, and then everyone that posts after them continually undercuts to get stuff sold, and it just spirals and spirals until the items are essentially worth nothing. And because there's not enough gold in people's pockets, they're not going to buy them anyway. There's only very few people that have a lot of gold and can invest in the top tier houses. And aside from the houses, the house tax and the fees you pay when crafting or using the trading post, there isn't money sinks either. So the game doesn't give you enough money, and there's not enough money sinks to take it away from you. So people never want to spend it on anything. And all the resources are so readily available that why would they buy it anyway when they can just go out and get it for free themselves? I'm not sure how Amazon Games is going to balance this, but developer intervention is definitely needed, or the markets on all servers are going to definitely crash across the board. It is going to be a big future problem. As much as people say it isn't and think that, oh, the game's new, the market will settle, it won't. It will continue to get worse. Another criticism would also be that the game just doesn't feel like it has any soul. I mean, as other reviewers have pointed out, a lot of the towns are copy-pasted. They're literally the same buildings, the same layout. They're just rotated a little bit. The game definitely has the potential to be as vast as an ocean in terms of the quality of the content that can be put into it. But as of right now, it has the depth of a puddle. If you want to PvE, you're stuck doing one main story quest and a load of side quests that feel disjointed and disconnected from the world. The corruption portals, which are a good endgame way of getting gear, Azoth, currency, and in general, you know, trying to have fun, are currently bugged, so that they don't always work properly. The PvP is scarce. Open world hardly happens. It's set around the 50v50 wars and the fort battles, which is not enough to cater to the PvP crowd. Not to mention, there's only one sort of PvP instance, so to put it, which is this Outpost Rush here. But as you can see, you need to be max level to reach it. So Outpost Rush, a 20 vs 20 match that takes place on a large island with 3 outposts. So in order to experience the only sort of PvP instance, PvPers PvP instance that they want on demand rather than waiting for a set time for wars, I should say, they've got to grind through all the stuff that they don't want to do to get to max level in order to play it. And anyone that wants to just try PvP casually, if they're under level 60, nope, you can't do that. I mean, imagine if in World of Warcraft, say you wanted to try PvP and you wanted to queue for Warsong Gulch, but nope, you can't do it, you're not max level. Like that wouldn't work. So it doesn't work here. So I can't even comment on the Outpost Rush, and I've not seen anyone comment on it either, so I don't know what it's like as a mode. But just the fact that you have to be max level to even get access to it is definitely stupid. Amazon desperately needs to work on the content within the game for both PvE players and PvP, and for those that like doing both. The crafting is largely fine. All the professions tie into one another, so they all rely on each other to some degree. Like fabric is going to be needed in heavy armor as well as leather armor. Metal's still going to be needed in cloth armor because there's stuff like, you know, buttons and stuff on that you have to put on and everything. So all the codependency with professions is a thing, but that's nothing new. The town project quests, again, are all largely the same. Like, acquire 140 wood, make this recipe, deliver this, hunt these, explore here and pick these things up. These are all incredibly repetitive, but they're also a good way to level, so you feel kind of compelled to do them, but it's just mindless content that doesn't really require any effort. And they don't pay enough either. Like, 9 gold for 40 star metal ingots. So something like this is contributing to the low prices on the market. So if the game is valuing 40 star metal ingots at 9 gold, and as you saw earlier, they're trying to sell 1 star metal ingot for 10 gold. Like, outside of crafting, why would anyone want to spend 400 gold on star metal ingots just to get the 40 for this quest and get 9 gold in return? Like, yeah, you get the, the 750 standing and the, 7.3k EXP, but to some, is that worth it? Would they be willing to waste that amount of gold? Probably not, because you've not been given really enough beforehand. And I know that I'm sitting on 11,000 at the moment, but that's largely because all I'm doing is farming for rare things that people need that don't have a market yet, like the slivers of adderstone for increased pockets in bags and things like that, or the motes and wisps that seem to be pretty rare. So, do I think that New World has a future? Not if it carries on the way it's going. I mean, every MMO has that player runoff after they launch, where you get the mass influx of players, and then people slowly people slowly start to dislike it, or they get bored, and the player base tapers off. New World's player base is, according to the Steam charts, and in my view anyway, tapering off a lot faster than it should be. And that all comes down to the fact that people were hitting this level 30s burnout. The content is severely lacking for both PvP and PvE. There's bugs and exploits that players are freely using. Amazon's hotfixes to try and fix them don't work, or effectively nerf something to the point of it being useless, vis-a-vis the Ice Gauntlet. The mass reporting system is a joke. Being able to mass report people of an entire faction just so you don't have to fight them because they're banned for 24 hours is ridiculous. And the funny thing is that you can appeal the ban, but it takes so long to get through to Amazon that by the time you get an answer and you've had your ban overturned, the 24 hours is up anyway. So a lot of people don't bother appealing the ban either. As I said, New World definitely has the potential to have an ocean's worth of content. It's got the foundation to do so. But with the current depth of a Puddle, it has a long way to go, and Amazon has a lot of work to put into it in order to make it sustainable and a long-term MMO that people can really invest themselves in. For me, right now, all this MMO is the slow grind for gold in order to buy and furnish a home like I would do in The Sims. It's an advanced house house sim for me at the moment. Now you get into, while the crafting's good and it's all codependent, they're obviously incredibly grindy, as you'd expect. You wouldn't want them to be too easy or too hard to level up, but a lot of them, some of them are a lot harder to level than others. Arcana for one. A lot of the reagents for leveling up Arcana are hard to come by. So the professions are alright. They're just very grindy, but for someone that is probably coming over from RuneScape into this, you'll notice similarities, and you'll probably find enjoyment in doing the crafting. You can level solely from crafting if you wanted to, which I know that there's at least 2 or 3 people doing on the server that I'm on. But I think that's pretty much all I have to say on New World as it stands currently. Obviously, I don't want to see it crash and burn because, you know, it's a good-looking MMO that has huge potential. So I don't want to see it crash, burn, and die and become like Mortal Online or anything like that. But at the same time, it has a lot of problems that need ironing out. But thank you for tuning in and listening to my sort of inane ramble on this. I will see you next time. Take care and make sure to hit that subscribe button.